Me presento para los que no me conozcáis, yo soy Xavi Olva, soy el coordinador de la comunidad Salud on Digital, entre otras funciones a las que me dedico, a las que tengo la suerte de dedicarme. Solo una breve introducción para los que no habéis participado en anteriores ocasiones con la comunidad Salud on Digital. Esta comunidad nació el pasado mayo del 2022 con el objetivo de juntar a empleados de empresas farmacéuticas o empleados de empresas de tecnología sanitaria o empresas de diagnóstico, con el objetivo de poder debatir de una forma sincera, cercana y de la mejor forma posible de los retos de la transformación digital. Todos y cada uno de las empresas farmacéuticas o de tecnología sanitaria de diagnóstico estamos ahora en pleno proceso de transformación y decidimos crear esta comunidad porque no había ningún colectivo parecido a esto donde pudiéramos de alguna forma debatir a puerta cerrada sobre este tema. Hasta el momento hemos desarrollado 2 jornadas, ambas en Madrid, en mayo del 2022 y en junio del 2023, en que han participado más de 200 empleados de este tipo de empresas y han participado y han sido que representaban a más de 40 empresas, ¿vale? Tenemos una excelente noticia porque el próximo 14 de diciembre y al final del evento hablaremos de ello, vamos a organizar una tercera edición. Esta vez vamos a viajar a Madrid para que las compañías que están en Madrid y que no han podido viajar hasta ahora puedan también participar y formar parte de esta comunidad, concretamente el próximo 14 de diciembre. Y por eso me gustaría dar también la bienvenida a Íñigo Sáenz, que desde hace unas semanas también es parte del equipo de coordinación. Íñigo nos va a acompañar hoy también como coordinador y presentador de este webinar. Y sin más, vamos al objetivo de la sesión de hoy, porque al final la sesión de hoy es el segundo capítulo de nuestra Webinar-Serie Salud on Digital. Después de la última jornada que celebramos en Barcelona, una de las peticiones que nos hicieron los asistentes es que continuáramos organizando sesiones de este tipo donde pudiéramos de alguna forma conocer de primera mano algunos de los retos o algunos de los aspectos que están absolutamente en debate en muchas de nuestras compañías. En la primera sesión pudimos contar con Alfredo Montero, que nos habló de cómo se está digitalizando la farmacia hospitalaria, colectivo que no tuvimos representado en ninguna de las 2 ediciones anteriores, cosa que sí que tuvimos autoridades sanitarias, médicos, pacientes y otros colectivos que son importantes. La farmacia hospitalaria nos explicó cómo se está digitalizando. Y hoy vamos a tratar de un tema que creo que también está en boga de todos vosotros, que son los Digital Therapeutics. Yo no voy a decir que son los Digital Therapeutics porque qué mejor que un experto en la materia que es Anish, y Anish va a contar también con el apoyo de otra de las personas que más sabe de Digital Health en nuestro país o a nivel mundial, porque Aline no dejas de viajar con tu networking, con tus ideas, con tus proyectos. Por tanto, quiero dar la bienvenida tanto a Anish Shindor como a Aline Noiset, que van a ser nuestros ponentes en la sesión de hoy. Básicamente ellos nos van a explicar cuál es el status quo actual de los Digital Therapeutics. Les hemos pedido, por favor, que hagan una presentación de alrededor de unos 30-35 minutos para que tengamos al final la oportunidad de poder hacerle preguntas a Anish, a Aline. Un tema súper importante y esperamos que no sea un problema para los asistentes. Tanto Anish como Aline, como notaréis, no son de Sevilla, su acento es algo diferente. Hablan y comprenden perfectamente el castellano, pero ellos se comunican mejor en inglés y por eso hemos decidido que una comunidad como esta, que además queremos que se expanda hacia afuera también en un futuro, pues podamos tener la presentación en inglés y así aseguramos que la fuerza y el talento y el conocimiento y experiencia que tienen los 2 ponentes en esta materia nos lo trasladan con la misma fuerza con la que hemos estado hablando en las últimas semanas. Hello, Aline. Hello, Anish. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much to share your knowledge with our community. We are very proud to have all of you in here because it's a great pleasure that 2 experts in this field share with us in a free way your knowledge and experience in this topic that we believe that it's very important for us. Then Anish and Aline, it's your turn. You can talk whenever you want. And please, thanks so much for your participation.
Thank you very much, Xavi, and thank you. Muchísimas gracias para todos para venir a esta sesión, y lo siento mucho que voy a hacer en inglés porque todo el material está creado en inglés y estamos mucho más acostumbrados de presentar todo el material, así que espero que podéis seguirnos, y si hay alguna duda, alguna pregunta, alguna cosa por el acento o algo que no entendéis, que levantáis la mano, porque es una conversación más que una presentación solo unidireccional. Pues empezamos primero como ladies first. Aline, you want to present yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Aline Noise. I'm Digital Health Connector. So that's my company, and that's what I do at the same time. I connect the different actors of the digital health ecosystem with a focus on startups. And Digital Therapeutics, I've been involved in that space for the past 4 or 5 years, since the beginning, really, when it became a term. And I'm on the board of several startups doing digital therapeutics, and I think it's really the future, and it really make a difference. So very happy to be here today.
Yeah, and it's my pleasure to be here, honestly, because I've been on the other side, on the pharma, for a very long time, actually about 14 years. Started off my pharma career heading up digital at Novartis for Spain and Portugal, then went into the global role within digital medicines at Novartis. Went into Sanofi to head up their global commercial data and analytics strategy, then followed up by their global digital therapeutics unit. And then my last stint in pharma was at Biogen, when I was running the external innovation, digital therapeutics and digital care area. And now I have a small company, which I'm hoping at a certain point in time becomes quite sizable, at least when it comes to money, not people, is called GSD Health. If you don't know what GSD stands for, I know this session is recorded, but it's okay. GSD stands for Get Shit Done. So you have in your pharma companies a lot of McKinseys, a lot of BCGs, a lot of other people presenting the what and the why. The goal that we have with GSD Health and the people that surround it is to work on the how, and to handhold the companies in order to make things happen, rather than just talk about them and put them on the slides. So that's the whole sentiment. Now, the reason what we want to do with Aline, we've been talking about it a couple of times. Although there's a lot of material and you can Google search about digital therapeutics, what we wanted to do was make it relevant for pharma. I understand from Xavi that a big target audience on this call is pharma. So we've tried to create a presentation that is more apt for you, rather than something that is going to be very different. Let me just quickly, 2 slides on GSD Health. I've already said we work with startups, we work with VCs, and we work with pharma and biotech. Our main goals, or our main, let's say, counterparts, are these innovation mavericks that we call. It's a very fancy name for anyone who wants to do anything in digital health, right? So those are the people we work with, and we try to focus on the how. The type of questions that we get from pharma are very different. Let that be from a digital strategy perspective, let that be as a measurement perspective, let that be for execution pieces. Some of you who are on the call, we worked with each other in some context or the other, so you know the type of value we can bring. And then lastly, when it comes to products and technologies and therapeutic areas, there are very few areas that we don't cover. And we don't cover most of the times due to either we don't have the senior level capability developed within the company, or there is not enough traction in the marketplace on those areas. That's all I'm going to say about GSD Health. Aline and I work together quite a lot on a lot of things. Her exceptional skill set of actually knowing everyone in the world, and more importantly, everyone knowing her, acts as a big benefit in order to know the marketplace, in order to know who to talk to, and in order to know how to move forward in some of these things. So just to contextualize certain things, right? And this may be known by most of you. By the way, am I going too fast, too slow? I cannot see anyone. So just stop me, pause me. It's okay, right? Okay. So what we are looking into, if we start on the left-hand side of the slide, is the model of care that we've been looking into, or that we've been working in, has evolved quite a bit or the expectation of it has evolved quite a bit, right? Look into some of the specialty care businesses, right? Oncology, neurology, even diabetes, if you look at it, there's a lot more that is going out of a hospital in a home setting. One specific example I can give you is NHS, and this is pre-pandemic, right? So this is before 2020, launched a program of cancer at home that was sponsored by NHS because they didn't have enough physicians to serve in a clinical setting. So they already started provisioning care and care delivery in an online essence. In US, you can also do a chemotherapy at home, for example, right, in most of the cases. We started talking about, rather than activities that would happen, to specific outcomes that can be generated, and all of it is due to the positives that have come from data generation at the point of care and also outside in a day-to-day setting as well. We've gone from treatment to prevention. A lot of it still needs to be done over there, but I'm going to move from all of these points to the last point, which is passive recipients to active participants. If you look at us, right, we are patients of some sort, or we are going to be patients of some sort. When you look into how we want to be treated or have a treatment for our health, we want to be more knowledgeable and more in control of what exactly is given to us and how it reacts in our body. So it's not just about the healthcare professional saying that this is what you're diagnosed with and we are going to put you on this treatment. Most of the times, people are starting to ask that first very basic question: what will happen, or what do I expect to happen after I start taking this medication or be on this treatment? It's a simple thing that we were not doing 10, 15 years ago, right? So those are the kind of things that have started developing, which basically leads us to this gap that we see within healthcare, which is in terms of governance. You know, Europe has one of the best healthcare systems, but at the same time, it's the most archaic one as well. And during the pandemic, we saw, right, everybody was shaken up. So when it comes to the kind of governance we need, there is very little. The type of reach that we need from a public health perspective is also very, very hard. And the healthcare systems have to pay and incur a very high cost in order to actually make any kind of change within the way they are practicing medicine today. And then when it comes to clinical practice and competencies, you see there is a big gap today in healthcare professional workers in the society. It's actually one of the biggest focus areas for WHO and for the European Commission today, in order to see how we can actually reduce or increase some of these competencies within the marketplace. If not, most of us who are in the above 30 age group are going to have a very sad, let's say, retirement plan when it comes to health and basic needs. And also in terms of knowledge gap, right? So when you look into therapeutic advancement, pharma has been the agent through which any knowledge and any incremental knowledge is carried out through continuous medical education to doctors, but the health system or the Ministry of Health has not invested anything on education. So there is a big gap, and doctors have to make an effort themselves in order to go through this. Now, what do we see that from an overall perspective, right? So, and this is an article, it's one of my favorite ones from A16Z, which is, today, as you look at it, healthcare represents only 10% of what influences premature death. So every one of us that has been working in a pharmaceutical company, what we contribute is to only 10% of what affects premature death. The other factors that are affecting it are 5%, which is environmental exposure. There's a lot of things happening in that space. A lot of your pharma companies are looking into sustainability measures, CO2 footprints, and these are reduction in CO2 footprints. The other part we are looking into is behavioral patterns. As humans, one of the things that we have the worst is our behaviors, right? Our ways to follow up. The genetic predisposition is something that we have still not found a way to control ourselves, control what we can do about it, and then the social circumstances being one of the biggest barriers. This has led to these, let's say, categories has led to not proper distribution of health equity, not proper selection and inclusion of people within clinical trials, and many other reasons of follow-up and monitoring of treatment. when we look into digital therapeutics and digital health specifically, or digital health and digital therapeutics specifically, what you are able to do, since it's a consumer device that you're looking at, right? Like a phone, like a mobile app, or some sort of a hardware, the social circumstances is one of the least concerning places for us, because the reach of any and all digital health solutions is quite easy. So social circumstances can be, let's say, eroded out of this whole barrier. And then behavioral patterns, if you look at some of the data around the effort that is being done in digital health, around 70%, or 65 to 70%, sorry, are focused on neurological, basically cognitive behavior therapies that disallow an individual to take care of their own health. So what we are seeing now is an environmental exposure. Of course, that's something that we are not able to control, and genetic predisposition, but you're going away from a 10% influence of premature death to about a 65% influence on premature death. Now, this is huge. This is huge change that digital health can drive. So whenever someone in your organization, I would say, is asking about, yeah, what about this, right? We hear about digital health. You need to have two things in mind, which is now through gaming, through other mechanisms, in terms of behavior patterns can be changed, can be developed, and also social circumstances when it comes to reach and inclusion can be done. So those are the two key points I want to get. But this is let's say the environmental structure. But maybe Aline, why don't you give us an overview of what do you think digital health is and where does digital therapeutic fit?
Sure. So when people ask me what is digital health, when I say I work in digital health, I define it as new technologies applied to healthcare. So all different types of technological components. And there's different subcategories. Yeah, we lost the presentation.
Oops, sorry.
I can carry it while you. So the categories there, it includes the biggest category are all the health apps that we can find on the App Store. So wellness apps, fitness apps. We also find in digital health like EHR, software for the hospitals, wearables, sensors. Telehealth is another one. Precision medicine, personalized medicine is another one with all the data. What do we do with the data to analyze them, do predictive medicine? And then we have the digital therapeutics as a subcategory of digital health. So the way we differentiate DTX from the whole ecosystem of digital health, digital therapeutics from the rest of the ecosystem, digital therapeutics or DTX, I think we're going to use the term DTX in that presentation, is that, so they include, there is an intervention, it's for patients, and the way you differentiate a DTX from a traditional health app is that there is clinical validation and real-world evidence validation. So we can see the same outcome in a patient if it's done in a clinical setting or if the patient is using the solution directly at home. And as you can see, so those solutions can take different forms, like all around digital health, and it can be for different actors. So being healthcare professionals, patients, hospitals, pharma, insurance, etc. But for the DTX, it's specifically for patients. So I think something important when you look at DTX is like, what is not DTX? So DTX has become a buzzword those past years, and many solutions are calling themselves DTX when they are not exactly. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. So some example of what it's not. So when you digitize a solution, it's not a DTX. It's not because you have an app that it is a DTX. So example of a journaling, if you go to the therapist, it can ask you to journal your thoughts. You are like between two sessions, and a company that would digitize that journal, that's not a DTX. There's no intervention there. The video consultation, the action of connecting through a video to healthcare professionals, the same, like that's only a tool. There's no intervention there. And finally, as I was mentioning before, so DTX are really for patients. So a solution that's directed to healthcare professionals. So let's say a solution to take notes or to help schedule appointments. That's not a DTX. There's no intervention there again. So what is a DTX? So a definition for you to keep in mind. So we said DTX are non-pharmacological solution that tech-driven, so it can be an app or software. They can be standalone, or they can be combined with a drug or a medical device. And the goal is really to improve patient outcomes, as we mentioned before. And for you, pharma, I think also important to keep in mind that it can help you to generate new business. So Anish, can you give us some example of DTX in action?
Absolutely. So I think this slide, there is a reason why we still have pair therapeutics over here. Although a lot of you may know that the company itself is not in action, but their product still is, Reseto. The way we look at digital therapeutics, right, is many different ways. There's one which is called DTXRX. This is prescription digital therapeutic. You have digital therapeutic OTC. So this is available over the counter, so you can go to an app store, you can download it. Most of the times it's free of charge, or if not, it's a subscription-based model, but this is a D2C setting. You have standalone digital therapeutics like you have with Propeller Health. There are other companies that do standalone digital therapeutic. My own experience was with multiple sclerosis, working with Happify Health, where we created a standalone digital therapeutic for looking into 3 comorbid conditions of MS, which is stress, anxiety, and fatigue. And we launched that. And then Combo DTX, there are very few or next to no examples that are launched in the marketplace, where you have an application plus a drug that have gone through a clinical trial and is part of the label and is being used. Do not confuse this one with companion solutions that you're launching today. A lot of you may have launched, and I remember from the Novartis days, we had like symptom tracking applications that we launched, but they were not labeled, they were not made part of the packaging of the drug. So companions are different. They're not forming as a part of a combo digital therapeutic. This has to go through a clinical trial and has to be part of the packaging. Let me take a pause over there. So far, is it clear? Are we going at an okay pace? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Cool. Perfect. So what do we do from here, right? So how can pharma incorporate that? One of the biggest challenges that we used to face when I was in pharma is what is the cost of actually launching a digital therapeutic? And some of the numbers that you may see over here may be quite big, but what we've tried to do is contextualize in some other numbers, because these are drugs, these are software as drugs. So if you look into traditional drugs, right, what are the development timelines? You look into, at the most conservative level, usually it's like 12 to 14 years, but let's say in 8 to 10 years, you have a drug launched in market. The R&D cost of that solution is anywhere between 100 million to 500 million, in some cases even billions. In terms of the market protection, these are protected most of the times from a price protection perspective for 5 years and a patent protection for about 7 to 8 years. In the past, it used to be about 10 to 13 years, but now it's more restrictive. And then the potential revenue that you can have, depending on your commercialization strategy, could be in billions, right? When you look into standalone digital therapeutic, you're looking into a very different timeline and a very different investment into it. So when you look into standalone digital therapeutic, you're looking at almost like a 2 to 2.5 year timeline, where you have to validate the science, you have to validate the technology, you have to validate and see if the outcomes that you're expecting to have are the ones that should be there. And then you go through a regulatory process to make sure that you're a class 1, class 2, A, B, or class 3 medical device, and then you're launched for reimbursement in some of the markets in the world. The overall cost of a digital therapeutic is about 10 to 15 million. Now, I understand that we are speaking in the Spanish market, and it is a big number to look at when you look at these things. But in terms of the return, and when you think about it from a timeline and a return on investment perspective, you're almost expecting 100 million plus business. Now, most of us who worked in pharma companies, we look at our P&Ls and we say, oh, Novartis, for example, right? It's a $900 million business only in Spain. You look into other companies. So that number doesn't sound very big, but put put yourself out of those pharma shoes and come out as an individual or a small company, and you say, I'm running a business of about 100 million plus on an annual basis only through one deal. That's a big business. That's quite a significant medium-sized business that you're looking into. And once you have enough products and enough portfolio, you now then multiply and you have a potential valuation. For example, with $100 million business, you have a potential valuation of at least about 2.3 billion. That's a big cost that companies pay or are willing to pay in order to move this forward. And then for Combo DTX, again, remember, this is the drug together with the technological solution. In the US, for example, there is a specific pathway already in place called 505(b)(2). You can look it up on FDA's website, which allows any molecule or any technology to be put in combination of a drug. And the benefits of that is once it's part of the label of the drug, you can get extension on your IP or price protection for an additional 3 years. Now, I've put the numbers low over here in terms of the revenue, potential revenue that you can get from the DTX itself. But think about it from your drug revenue. If you have a price protection for any of your drugs for 3 more years, just multiply that and see what kind of a value you're generating. But what we see in terms of the development time in this case is about 2 years. There are specific policies in place within FDA, within EMA as well. EMA is actually working on one right now for Combo DTX that is forecasted to launch in the beginning of 2025, if I'm not mistaken, which will allow companion or combo digital therapeutic products to be launched in the European marketplace. Now, how does each and every country take it from there is a completely different problem, because all of us know, no matter how much union Europe should have, we are quite fragmented in the way we operate in things, right? So those are the topics you look into. Now, in terms of what do we look into? So everybody in this call, probably you are aware of GXP compliance, good manufacturing practice, good documentation practices, and all these things. What you have for digital therapeutic is very simple. Most of the times, a digital therapeutic is considered as a SAMD. If it's a new terminology for you, SAMD basically is software as a medical device. That's what SAMD stands for. And when you're launching digital therapeutic, what the expectation is it has a GMP, drug-like GMP compliance, drug-like safety and clinical efficacy tested. So safety in digital therapeutics is measured by the MDR class 1, class 2, class 2A, 2B class certification. And then clinical efficacy is tested by the hypotheses that you have of the outcome of the solution and what the clinical results actually look like today in your hands. This is the only way to get your solutions approved, for example, in Germany and in France and in Belgium and Netherlands as well as the other piece. It has a drug-like label, so it goes through a listing. It has a specific reimbursement, pricing and reimbursement pathway, and IP and regulatory are specific barriers to entry. So if you look at digital therapeutic, it sounds very similar to what a drug-based compliance would look like if you are able to see a drug from molecule to market perspective. But let's bring it back. So this is more on the regulation side. This is more on the thinking piece of why and how. But let's go into the treatment piece. So Aline?
Yeah, so why should we care about DTX when it comes to patient? So we mentioned before that DTX are really targeted at patient to ensure positive outcomes for patient. So what are the benefits of using DTX for them? So first, personalization, I would say on 2 different levels. So first, personalized education. So many of the DTX, they are based on cognitive behavioral techniques. So that's something that's been known for a long time, and it has been digitized in those DTX. And part of that is education. So let's say someone has chronic pain. Well, there will be a module talking about pain, explaining to the patient what is pain, what is chronic pain, what is the pain not going away, etc. And I think that's a good mental support for the patient to really understand the pain. And then the second, personalized level, would be around the solution and the treatment. So the DTX are collecting data on a regular basis, and that gives some insightful information to the healthcare professionals to personalize the treatment of the patient. So if they see that the treatment is not working, well, they can change it based on those data collected. DTX is also great for adherence. So many of them are using like gamification techniques to ensure that the patient are engaging and adhering to the app and the treatment. And you can also imagine like send some alerts to the families if the patient is not taking the treatment. It also helps with monitoring, so you can really follow up a patient. Let's say when you go to the doctor, you can see what has been happening between 2 visits. So it's not just the patient during the 6 minutes that we see him or her, but really like over a period of 3 months. And then we have solutions like Move Care in France, for instance, that are enabled to do follow-up of patient after lung cancer in that case. And then it can let the healthcare professional know if there's an issue with the patient and then address that issues at the very beginning. So the patient were going into relapse in that case, well, being taken care of at the early stages. And then there's also those solutions are really so collecting those data, and they give personalized advice to the patient on what they should do to stay healthy, and also around lifestyle, diet, exercise, etc. So Anish, can you tell us more like in which phase of the patient journey those DTX are the most useful?
If I can get myself to unmute, yes, absolutely. So in terms of, it's funny, right? We've all done so many remote meetings throughout the COVID place, but nobody has figured out how to unmute better. It's insane. Sorry, the quick segue. But on the DTX side of these, right? When you look into a patient journey, right? For pharma, most of the times we talk about treatment journeys, and that is starting over here after the middle of the screen, which is treatment decision is made and the patient is put on treatment. But if you look at and revisiting some of the concepts that you saw in the beginning slides, which is you have OTC DTX that doesn't really need to be on label. You can actually start a digital therapeutic right at the initiation of the treatment. So a lot of times, if I look at the patient journey, right, you have the identification, activation, pre-diagnosis, diagnosis, treatment, monitoring, and potential discontinuation, right, of the treatment. So if you look at this entire journey, it's probably at the identification place where some of the digital therapeutic solution, which can also be used as a diagnostic, can be used. So in the preventative care and wellness stage, we've already seen a lot of stuff happening within the heart disease. So how many of you are wearing an Apple Watch today, right? If you look into that, you have a continuous ECG monitoring that's happening. And that will allow you to see if there is a potential of atrial fibrillation in that case, right? So this is already in the preventive space that you're doing. Now, how much of it you look at it and you believe it, that is the human behavior and the human nature. But a lot of times people take actions towards what these devices are saying. When you look into diagnosis, today, there are many solutions. So 96% of the cases of breast cancer can be solved with the right therapeutic intervention. But the biggest issue that happens within this is the diagnosis usually happens at a plus 18 months level. And that's where some of the escalated scenarios happen. So you have monitoring and also diagnostic solutions that can be done. Once the treatment decision is made, there is a good monitoring place. Within diabetes, you have multiple examples. But then you look at companies like Akili, who have an ADHD solution for children and for, I would say, the parents of the children, which allow them to potentially monitor and track the treatment on how it is going. With asthma, you see companies like Nuvo Air, who not only have OTC solutions, but also risk and care management solutions from a DTX perspective. So where can a DTX be plugged in? Literally everywhere. What we highly recommend is from there we go into potentially in terms of the problem solving mode, which is where do we start focusing, right? One of the biggest issues that we used to face when we were talking within our teams to commercial teams or medical teams, there was a preconceived notion on what exactly the unmet needs are. Within cardiovascular space, everybody would say the problem is on adherence, but then when we look at these things, what we come out to as a problem area is very different. So highly recommend that you focus on patient needs, define and design the patient flow in a way that you are able to highlight and surface those unmet needs. And then from a market opportunity perspective, look at it. So look, we are all in profit-making companies, right? There's no one on this call who is in a non-profit company, and even the ones that are on for profit have to make a profit to actually invest more in their companies themselves. So look at the market opportunity, look at it from a peak revenue perspective on what is going to bring you either on the drug side or on the digital therapeutic side money, and how exactly you want to set it up, and then the level of differentiation you can cause. So one of the issues, and Aline used the perfect word, right? There's a lot of buzz around DTX. The important thing is to differentiate what your digital therapeutic is actually doing compared to some other solutions that may not be a digital therapeutic, but they come with a similar packaging, because it's all about marketing these days, and unfortunately we are doing damage to ourselves by marketing things in an incorrect way. Then on the other side, I think we can go quickly through this slide. Some of the other stuff that highly recommend that you look into is if the company that you work with has gone through all the regulatory processes, because pharma would never take the responsibility to regulate such products unless and until they are into hardware and software development themselves. Bayer is doing that. You have Ferrer doing that on some of the things. You have other companies like Novo Nordisk also creating Sanofi also has a medical device unit. So regulatory capabilities may or may not be present in your company. Reimbursement is highly dependent on how does the company expect to commercialize. Most of the companies that will reach out to you have only one business model, which is pharma pays for their services, but that could be a risk if you pull the plug on them. And then market access is basically how do you reach the last mile, which is how do you get engagement and how do you get returns on that. And then one of the last slide is, which goes into the business model piece, right? The opportunities that we see within pharma are basically on two business models. If we start on the left, it's either increased adherence. Now, a lot of times in pharma, increased adherence is all about the patient taking the number of the dosage, the right dosage on the right day, the right number of times during the month. That is only one dimension of what adherence means. If we can have a separate call, I can show you at least 38 different characteristics of what contributes to higher adherence, which is mainly engagement and knowing and education of the therapy. This is what increases the loyalty of the patient. I don't know if there's anybody on the call from Almiral. When Almiral was within respiratory, if you remember those days, there was higher adherence and higher engagement of treatment to Almiral drug or Almiral COPD drug than in the case of Novartis. The only reason was the respirometer that was being used. That was of very high quality compared to Sebree, Ultibro, and these products. That was a unique differentiation in that piece, and doctors wanted to prescribe that. And that's why they saw higher adherence, even though the outcome may not have been the most optimal one. So you have to look at engagement and loyalty as a part of this as well, both from healthcare professional and from a patient perspective. That is also a part of differentiation, right? We've been talking about around the pill, over the pill, beyond the pill, all these solutions for more than a decade. More than a decade now. I think the first time this was spoken, at least in my digital health career, was by David Epstein, who was the previous CEO of Novartis Pharma, which included oncology as well. And he spoke about beyond the pill in 2011 when he came to our Spanish offices, and he said, I want to do this, right? I want to go beyond the pill, and we kind of use that. IP extension, we spoke about 505(b)(2). We spoke about EMA, what they're working on it. Huge financial upsides to that. And then one of the most important pieces that we haven't spoken about throughout the presentation, which is access to data. You have access to near real-time data on the use of pharma products and your value proposition, if they are working or not, which can potentially help in medical and commercial strategy. Now, most of you will react to this and say, our legal and compliance team will never allow us to look into that data. That is true, but they will allow you to look into the insights, right? They will allow you to look into, if this is a combination digital therapeutic solution, it's part of the label, you will get access to all the information and all the data of usage. And if there is a new indication that you're actually finding out from the combination between these two devices, that is a new product. The only company has used real-world data so far in order to, real-world evidence so far in order to have a new indication is Pfizer. So look up Pfizer in beginning of 2019 for one of their oncology product. They got approval on a new indication only based on real-world evidence data, nothing else, right? And then the new revenue streams, which is if you have a specific standalone digital therapeutic solution like the one that we had alluded to in the beginning on MS, where we are trying to find a solution for management of stress, anxiety, and fatigue, that was looking into new revenue streams from a standalone perspective. But all of this is good, right, in the business model perspective, but maybe Aline, can you shed some light on how is this all regulated in Europe, at least?
Yep, so that's a very important point, and the good news is that things are really moving in different countries, and different countries are really like putting in place schemes to reimburse those solutions from the public health system. So it all started with Germany. So Germany has really been pioneered in the space. They started already with private insurances who were offering DTX to their customers. And then, so 2020, they started creating that, so the DIGA, I would call. So it's a repository of solutions that are validated by BfArM, the organism in Germany. It means that those apps can be prescribed and reimbursed by the statutory health insurance over there. So as of today, there's 50 solutions reimbursed, so 50 solutions included in that repository. And if you're interested in knowing more, so Monday 30th of October, we are doing a free webinar on DIGA. So we have someone from Germany, expert in DIGA, who will tell us more what is DIGA, how can you apply to be a DIGA, partnership between DIGA and pharma, etc. So if you want to know more, you can go on my LinkedIn. I posted about it today, so it should be interesting. And then Belgium, they followed Germany a few months after. They launched their scheme, which is a bit different, like a pyramid with 3 different levels. And if you reach the level 3, that level 3 minus and plus, you can get reimbursement. So far, there's only one product in level 3 minus. So things are a bit slow there, but I think things are moving. And they were saying recently that they're gonna launch like even a new system, maybe more similar to Germany in the coming month. In the UK, Damien, things are happening, so it's a bit different. So there's no national reimbursement through the NHS, but some organizations through the US are using DTX. And if you remember, was it 2-3 years ago, NHS Scotland announced that they would be offering 2 products, so Sleepio and Date, so for insomnia and for mental health or stress. So 2 products by Be Health to the citizen in Scotland. So we really see that things are moving there. And then finally, the last one was France that announced their own program a few months ago. It's called PCAN. So there were different systems before, I think a bit confusing even for a French person to understand how to navigate and the different systems that were in place. So hopefully the PCAN should replace all those different previous systems. And they already started reimbursing. So I know that at least one solution for oncology that's already reimbursed through the PCAN, and people can already apply. And Anish, I know you said you wouldn't speak Spanish because we don't have anything in Spain, which is true, but there are some people working on that to try to have our own DIGA in Spain. But here in Catalonia, there are things happening, and I think we should see something soon, like I would say in the next 6 months. So they announced recently that they presented the Plough of Innovation about a month ago here in Catalonia, and that includes a fast track. The fast track is not just DTX, it's a bit wider. It also includes SAMD, and the idea is really to push innovation to the healthcare systems. And that includes a scheme like DIGA to certificate solution. So Aquas would be the organism who would be validating the solution, and BioCat would create like a support system for the startups who want to apply to that certification, so they can prepare them for that certification. So I think that's very good news. Like things are moving. So Anish, can you tell us now, like, why pharma should care about DTX?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to drink out of the fire hose on this one, but and just be all about DTX, but there are many good scenarios, right? So when you look into pharma, why it should be interesting, patient engagement, if it's one of your priorities, looking at some of the solutions and the proof points, the confidence level that we have in that is very, very high. That yes, they can drive patient engagement and things. The other part that pharmaceutical companies always look for is, right, outcomes. Tell me what exactly are the outcomes and the claim associated that. That is also very positive. Most of the clinical trials around the world on digital therapeutic that have been run. So if you are surprised that there are clinical trials on digital therapeutics being run, there's a lot of study that you need to do, but this go through a very rigorous process as well. So our confidence on that when it comes to trial design and trial execution is very, very good. When it comes to regulatory pathway, right? So Aline already mentioned it, especially on the European Union side plus UK, that there are things in place, but they may not appear as highly regulated. What we know for sure is the regulation definition has been simplified to any digital health solution that has some sort of a therapeutic outcome out of it needs to be going through the MDR, medical device regulation process, and that is the minimal. So it has to be safe and it has to be launched. So it has to be, the reimbursement part is a bit complicated. So our confidence level on the regulatory pathway is not completely 100%, but we are 75% confident on it. The reason why we are not confident 25% is because it's still, the expectation is still that it should go into as rigorous testing as a drug would, which all of you know, if it goes through an 8 to 10 year cycle in most of the countries for being regulated, there's not going to be a difference in pricing or in reach. These are going to be very expensive solutions and hard to launch. And then reimbursement, as we spoke, right? When we spoke to some of the payers in US for this and some notified bodies within Europe, there was like a yes and no kind of a thing in them, where more than 50% said yes, if we do see an improvement in outcomes and a potential reduction in cost of operating that, yes, we will reimburse you for those solutions. So there is a 50-50% chance, in an honest opinion, of what that is. And then the last one, right, which is the biggest question mark for pharma. How does pharma commercialize a digital therapeutic? Is it the sales rep that commercializes it? We've tried that in the past, and just simple math, right? If you look at the cost per sales rep per visit to a healthcare professional in a primary care scenario in Spain, you would look at a cost of around 180 euros per sales rep per healthcare professional visit that lasts for 5 minutes. In a specialty care scenario, it's a longer visit, but the cost of that rep is going to look like around 230 euros per visit. Now, if the cost of acquisition per customer is that high, and let's say the conversion of each customer takes about 7 visits, you can do the math. You're looking into about like 1,500 to 1,800 euros just to bring a healthcare professional on board, and then hoping that they would bring more patients on board. So we don't really think going through a sales rep is the optimal model. So the recommendation, so that is still the least confidence level that we have. So where we've seen a good response is when the health tech company is actually looking into patient recruitment themselves. I'll give you an example of one of the products. I cannot tell the disease area nor very specific details, but I'll tell you it's in the specialty care unit. We were able to identify within a span of 4 weeks about 1,670 patients that were suffering with that disease. About 1,200 of those were not diagnosed, and about 790 and 794 to be precise were target patients for that drug that was going to be launched in the marketplace. This was done in 4 weeks. Look at your brand plans, whatever it may be, and try and see how much time and money it requires to identify and potentially bring on board 790 patients. And then you compare that to a 4-week exercise. So that's where we see a health tech company being much more active and much more participative and having more options to reach out through paid ads, through triage questionnaires, and through telemedicine visits to identify these patients. So this in terms of regulation and stuff, but then a lot of times people ask us, which are the DTX companies? So Aline, why don't you go through some of the examples that we have on this slide?
Yeah, sure. So what we've seen those past years is that DTX market has really grown a lot, and we see solutions in all the different therapeutic areas, with the leading ones being like mental health and CNS. But so we see solutions also in important therapeutic areas like diabetes, like cardiovascular, that's very important. And also maybe my favorite application of DTX is in the immune diseases and rare diseases who don't have a treatment, or treatment is not clear yet. So DTX are not gonna cure those patients, but it will address the symptoms, and that's a big thing. If you think about CBD or Hashimoto disease, those patients, they are suffering a lot with the symptoms, and with solutions on the market, it's really, really improving their quality of life. So I think that's a great news.
Nice. So, I mean, that is the end of our presentation, but hopefully it was insightful. Some of the key things, right? And we'll take your questions, but some of the things that we advise you is, look, when you're trying to run a program like this, just be very clear on what your own blind spots are. And what we mean by that is, don't try to jump on the ship of digital therapeutic without really measuring how big that ship is in your company, especially because that you may have very few people interested or knowledgeable about bringing that on board. Figure out what exactly is important for you as a leader, and not just you individually as a company, because if your strategy is focused, for example, in a digital therapeutic, you can, I mean, in digital health, you can have as a pharma company 2 strategies, right? You want to impact your core business, or you want to create something vertical on a population health perspective, right? And if any of those 2 things are not clear for you, you're just trying to run a digital therapeutic program for the sake of it, right? To just show that your company is doing it. So just be very clear on what matters for you. And then in terms of inspiration, right? A lot of times, and I may remember this, a lot of times we used to bring companies at Novartis from outside just to inspire us and say, hey, how do you do this? We've had people who run taxi companies in order to see how they are now keeping the defibrilladores. How do you say it in English? It doesn't come to me. But you have defibrillators in the taxi. They have like ECG monitors. They have like spare oxygen cans as well. There are some people who do that, and we were like, okay, this is amazing, because a lot of times they saw that somebody was having a heart attack or some sort of a concussion and they were not able to breathe or something, and they equipped their own environment with these solutions and they were trained on it. So always good to know what inspiration can come out. And then last one is more on ethos and a spiritual perspective, right? What are the couple of things that you want to adapt to signal the future, right? For me, it's, I mean, for me, it's like I'm going for 2 things, right? Anything and everything that I do in my private and in my professional work is related to population health, and the second one is related to treatment of cancer or better improvement of cancer care. What are the two things I would say that you want to do from an innovation perspective that would change the future? And with that, this is Aline and I. Just please feel free to reach out offline, online, whichever way is convenient for you guys. You can scan the QR code that will take you directly to our LinkedIn pages. Please feel free to connect. And now, if we have time, we can have some questions. I think everyone slept.
No, not really. I mean, we were listening. I mean, it's been a brilliant presentation for today. I think we're waiting for something more, but unfortunately the time is over, and yeah, I think people should leave this virtual meeting, unfortunately. But I would like to just thank you all and say and confirm the brilliance of your presentation. And maybe one thing that could help us as a most of the audience are from pharma companies. Just a quick question regarding what do you think are the main barriers for the internal barriers for the pharma companies have you identified regarding the implementation or investment on the DTX? Because the positive playground is there. You have just shown us.
Yeah. I mean, Aline, you okay if I go first? I mean, in terms of barriers, right? I think the first one is lack of belief. A pharmaceutical company, for them to identify as an organization that would do something in technology is still a stretch, unless and until, of course, they've been dealing with medical devices as a part of their portfolio. It's a bit of a stretch. And then I think at a very human and a practical level, one of the first things, we don't think about technology as a first instance of care, even if we use technology to find all those solutions for care. So that human barrier of relating that some sort of a technology can help me cure something is still not embedded in our systems. But if you look back, right, look into glucose monitoring, right? People have glucometers and they're using insulins on a daily basis. But guess what? They are more in love with their glucometers than their insulin, because the glucometer is telling them exactly what is happening in their body. This has been happening for many decades now. But as soon as it comes to transferring that same feeling to the phone, we feel that no, it's not good enough, right? So I think we need to start breaking our own boundaries and understanding that the patient is not out there and we are not sitting in a cave, or that patient is not an alien or somewhere like cavemen and cavewomen. These are individuals that are equipped with the same technology that you and I have. What pharma companies do need to realize is that the applicability of technology in the process of care is very different. And this is where you have people like the ones that are on the call today, trying to translate that in small bits and pieces on how that company can do it. So I don't know, Inigo, if it answers your question, but these would be two recommendations that we see. Aline,
definitely one is one. I mean, you totally. I was saying that. Yeah, you're right. There's a lack of belief on what this technology can do on a treatment basis. Totally agree. Aline, anything more on your side?
Yeah, maybe from my side, what I've seen is that the pharma companies don't always know how to collaborate or what to do with DTX. So there's actually different ways. You know, you can purchase a company, you can license a solution, you can co-create a solution, which is the most common. But it can be confusing and maybe scary to start. And sometimes I see that as the barrier.
It's a good one.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's an opportunity, a lot of things to do and learn, and even test and learn, I would say. in terms of getting the right solution for DTX. ¿Alguna otra pregunta de los que estamos aquí? Any other questions that the people who is in the audience?
Yeah, maybe just one question. You know, on the experimentation you spoke about from Pfizer in real-world evidence, where did they get their indication? Was it in the US? Was it in Europe? Was it in both?
No, this was initially, so 2019. That one was in US that it was launched. I'll check and see if they got it approved in Europe as well, but I did not follow up on that.
Okay, thanks.
Please feel free to reach out. Again, if you see my name once, I'm the only person in the world with this name for good and bad reasons. So feel free to reach out. Aline, I mean, literally, she's one of the most well-known people within the industry. So you're here.
Yes, don't be shy, and maybe if Saluton Digital community, you can also connect with us to put you in contact with these two amazing guys, the most advanced people, I would say, in DTX for sure. And as Tavi said, in Spain and beyond Spain. So I don't know if there's something more to say or any other question or reflection. Maybe Raul was.
Yeah. I think the most important point for the pharmaceutical companies is how to convince the national health system that DTX are valuable and that they can be approved by them and by the EMA, for example. That's a tough point for me, because I mean, why not? Why not? I mean, from the pharmaceutical perspective, but what about the government and the? Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
I'm a truly believer of the DTX, by the way.
No. It's look. So that's the thing, Rahul, right? One of the things is, and I'll be honest with you, I've never seen a pharma company. Whenever I've worked on it, we tried to do this as DTX as a drug within our pipeline, and especially on some of the products that we worked on, we put it as a R&D pipeline and things like that, expected revenue, peak revenue, and things. But it was highly and heavily dependent on external market and regulation, and that's where one of the things that we put on that slide, which is our feeling towards it, or our confidence level on that, is not completely 100%, because regulation is changing very fast. Aline can talk to you about, like, in France with Pican, they have launched the policy, I think, how many times? 4 times now since they first communicated it. So that is the issue that we see. But this, again, 4 years ago, Rahul, DTX was just a talk on something that would happen. Today, there are countries regulating it and reimbursing it. In the next 2 years, you will see that as a part of hygiene factor, as a part of treatment pathway. So things will be moving. It's just that we need to look at the right opportunity from an ROI perspective. I think where your question goes is on the ROI piece, but I would encourage pharma to look into something which is called ROE, which is return on engagement, first, and then get into ROI. And we can talk offline on what those ways of measuring an ROE could look like that helps in developing an ROI for your business.
Just to share a thought. The first phrase my first boss told me in a pharmaceutical company was, "Show me the money."
How much money were they showing you to build the DTX? Let him answer that question, and then you show the ROI.
No, but well, I agree. I do agree with you that we should first focus on engagement, and then let's find out which are the incomes. Yeah, I do.
Exactly. All right. This has been a pleasure. I need to run to my next meeting, but again, guys, please reach out for anything. Both Alina and I would be but would love to have some questions offline and take this conversation with you on one-to-one.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you for
Insightful
joining.
presentation.
Bye-bye.
Y solo para acabar, y antes de que os vayáis todos, recordar que en 3 semanas tenemos el siguiente capítulo de la Webinar-Serie de Salud on Digital. Esta vez nos vamos a ir a otro tema súper interesante, que es el Customer Engagement, pero visto desde la perspectiva de otro sector. Vamos a tener una persona que ha trabajado tanto en Apple y ahora trabaja en el grupo Inditex y nos va a explicar cómo están trabajando toda la parte de Customer Engagement digital, para que aunque muchas de esas cosas no sean aplicables a nuestro sector, pero sí que seguro que nos darán alguna pista y algún aprendizaje que podremos aplicar. Tendremos a una persona que yo me aprecio mucho y que seguro va a ser muy transparente con nosotros. Sin más, mil gracias a todos de nuevo por haber asistido y estamos en contacto. Hasta pronto.
Hasta luego, gracias. Chao, chao.
Hasta luego, gracias.